All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're literally setting sail on what I can only describe as an epic, visually breathtaking journey into the past. We're looking at a man who took the world's most terrifying, uncharted oceans and transformed them into a precise map of scientific knowledge. We're talking about the legendary 15th century Arab navigator, cartographer, and scholar, Ahmad ibn Majid. Let's dive right in. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a 15th century mariner for just a second. How on earth did sailors cross thousands of miles of violent, unpredictable ocean without any of the modern tech we rely on today? No satellites, no GPS, zero digital weather forecasts. It was literally just endless water, the wind, and the terrifying beauty of the sky. For centuries, the oceans were the ultimate mystery, a truly deadly barrier. But what if there was one guy who dedicated his entire existence to decoding those profound rhythms of the sea, the winds, the currents, the stars? Well, there was. His name was Ahmad ibn Majid, and he took the inherited folklore of the ocean and hammered it into a rigorous science, guiding humanity through the waves long before the European Age of Discovery was even a thing. Section 1. The Ocean's Greatest Mystery. Now, to really get his world, we have to talk about collective learning. Arab mariners, known as nakhodas, were the absolute masters of these watery highways. They were sailing these incredible wooden dhows across the Indian Ocean, packed with lucrative spices like cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, you name it. But here's the thing. They weren't doing this blindly. They relied entirely on the sharing, preserving, and building of navigational knowledge across generations. Every single voyage was a lesson that got passed down from father to son. Section 2. The Lion of the Sea. So let's look at the man himself. Ahmad ibn Majid was born around 1432 in Julfar. That's in the modern-day UAE. He came from this very strict Orthodox Muslim family of highly esteemed navigators, and he actually had to finish his education, which meant memorizing the entire Quran, before he was even allowed near the water. But by age 17, he makes his first sea voyage, actually manning the rudder. Fast forward to 1462, and he's actively pioneering what he called the new navigation, this completely revolutionary system rooted in heavy math and astronomy. He spent decades out there mastering the seas until his passing around 1500, leaving behind a legacy that literally changed the world. Moving on to Section 3, Science of the Stars. Okay, so before we had modern instruments, what did sailors do? They looked up, and Ibn Majid was an absolute master of celestial navigation using this brilliantly simple little device called the Kamal. Picture this. It's just a small rectangular wooden card, maybe 2 by 1 inches, with a knotted string passing right through a hole in the center. That's it. But with just this piece of wood and string, Arab navigators could accurately determine their ship's latitude just by reading the heavens. It's kind of mind-blowing. And using it was this highly tangible, almost interactive process. Try to visualize this. The navigator puts one end of the string right in their teeth. Then they hold the wooden card out, totally parallel to the ground. They line up the lower edge of the wood with the horizon and then slide the card along the string until the top edge perfectly covers or occludes a specific target star, usually Polaris, the North Star. Once it's lined up, they just count the knots from their teeth to the card and boom, they have the precise angle. Oh, and by the way, these knots were tied to measure an angle of exactly 1 finger width, which in Arabic is called an isaba. Just absolutely ingenious. But he didn't just use the North Star. His astronomical knowledge was staggering. I mean, we're talking about cataloging the Magellanic Clouds way down in the southern hemisphere. He used 24 out of the 25 brightest stars in the night sky, Sirius, Canopus, Rigel. He mapped the mansions of the moon and just countless lesser stars. He essentially took the chaos of the night sky and turned it into a highly detailed, super reliable map for the sea. And look, these weren't just fun academic observations. This was literally about survival. He applied this science practically to draw invisible lines of latitude across the water. Because of this, he could pinpoint a ship's exact position, calculate arrival times, track those tricky shifting monsoon seasons, and, this is crazy, he could even use backup substitute stars to keep his direction if the sky clouded over. For him, every single journey was an experiment, and the entire ocean was his laboratory. Section 4. Encyclopedia of the Ocean. Now, a true scientific pioneer doesn't just discover things, they document them. And Ibn Majid knew exactly what he was doing. He powerfully stated, "I am writing a new navigation. a navigation you never heard of before me. You've got to love that confidence. He had this profound self-awareness that he was breaking totally new ground, integrating complex math and astronomy into the nautical arts a full century before European navigators were publishing their own manuals. His absolute masterpiece is the Kitab al-Fawaid, which roughly translates to the book of useful information on the principles and rules of navigation. And guys, this wasn't just some basic logbook. This was the definitive maritime reference of the era. We are talking about a literal encyclopedia of the ocean, covering sailing routes, the winds, the stars, and exactly how to use a compass and astrolabe. And that book, that was just the crown jewel. What's truly wild is his total output. Ibn Majid authored an astonishing 46 unique works on sea navigation, using both poetry and prose. And the poetry part is actually brilliant because it made it so much easier for illiterate sailors to just memorize these incredibly complex routes and celestial coordinates by reciting them as rhythmic verses. He basically programmed the minds of an entire generation of mariners.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Vasco da Gama myth.
So for centuries, there's been this massive historical myth floating around that back in 1498, the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama somehow enlisted Ahmad ibn Majid to guide his fleet across the unknown Indian Ocean, a voyage that essentially kicked off European global imperialism. But when we look at the historical reality, it's a completely different story. Arab sources have disputed this for a long time, pointing out that it was actually a Gujarati Indian sailor who just wanted to get home that guided the fleet. So how do we actually separate the fact from the fiction here? Well, let's break down the evidence impartially. First off, Vasco da Gama's own captain's log never actually mentions Ibn Majid by name. It just vaguely references an Arab mariner or a Gujarati sailor. Second, there are these old rumors that da Gama got Ibn Majid drunk to steal his secrets. But that totally contradicts history. Ibn Majid was known as a highly pious Orthodox Muslim who strictly forbade alcohol. Now, da Gama probably did have Ibn Majid's incredibly accurate maps, which definitely aided his journey indirectly. But the definitive proof comes from a really fascinating landmark study by His Highness Sheikh Dr. Sultan bin Muhammad al-Qasimi. By analyzing a rare 1497 manuscript over in Porto's public library, this study totally reshapes the narrative and definitively clears Ibn Majid of the whole claim.
Section 6, Legacy of the Navigator.
When you really step back, the magnitude of his life just cannot be overstated. Ahmad ibn Majid took centuries of inherited Arab seafaring wisdom and synthesized it with his own precise, rigorous scientific observations. His nautical texts, his poems, his encyclopedias, they became the absolute gold standard for future dhow captains mastering the incredibly complex economies of the Indian Ocean, the Red Sea, and the Arabian Sea. And he did all of this long before the modern age of European exploration. Today, he is rightfully revered. No longer just a footnote, but an absolute icon of Arab contribution to global science and civilization. So this leaves us with a final, really provocative thought. As we look up at the sky today, preparing to chart the future of human exploration, whether that's to other planets or deeper into our own oceans, what can we actually learn from the Lion of the Seas? Here was a man who looked at the terrifying abyss of the ocean, looked up at the stars, and through sheer intellect, observation, and collective learning, turned the absolute unknown into a permanent map of knowledge. It is just a spectacular testament to human ingenuity. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. Keep exploring, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.